Brenda, let's move across to you. And for our viewers here today on the live broadcast, you might be thinking of some questions now, something that is happening in your organisation or something that you're wanting to get going for next year. Feel free to drop us a question. It doesn't matter what it is, can be big or small. We've got amazing women here today to answer your questions, so feel free to pop that in there today. But Brenda, let's pop across to you now. You have seen a lot of organisations over the years take huge leaps and transformation through undertaking really solid and sound research. Could you give us a couple of examples of the types of transformations that you have seen?
Sure, yes, that's a great question. And of course, sometimes I think transformation is in the eye of the beholder or the organisation, because sometimes incremental progress is equally valuable to organisations, and sometimes transformation takes a long time and can be seen as that incremental transactional progress. So I've got a couple of examples, both quite different. One is Community Housing Victoria, who's an organisation that provides long-term and transitional housing to low socioeconomic families. They also provide a range of homelessness services to people primarily in eastern Melbourne and down through the Gippsland region. Community Housing Australia wanted to strengthen its relationships with its customers and provide a set of guidelines that the customers for customers about what to expect when they were interacting or dealing with community housing. They specifically wanted to develop a customer promise or a customer charter that would outline, what customers could expect. So they wanted this promise to be an integral part of their interactions with customers, and they decided that it wouldn't be right for them to develop a promise based on their own chats internally, and that they needed to understand where the customers' issues were with how they were interacting at the moment and where they could do it better and what they could weave into their customer promise. So we did a series of focus groups followed by an online survey for all of their transitional and long-term housing customers and those who were dealing with homelessness, and talked about the idea of the promise and asked for input into various areas. So the result was a charter that takes account of what customers have said, that customers have had buy-in to. They took that, they trained everybody in the organisation in the promise. They developed visuals and big posters in their offices and things like that, and completely adopted that promise. That was a real first for Community Housing Australia, and that method of consultation has now been adopted in other states and territories and being rolled out. So they're all working to develop their promise. And another quite separate example is where a state-based association wanted to transition to a national association, and that is not an easy thing to do. So the Commercial Vehicle Industry Association of Queensland, bit of a mouthful, was a state-based association representing manufacturers and suppliers of commercial vehicles. It was part of a federated membership model, but members in Queensland wanted to establish a national structure that could provide a unified voice and better advocacy to take to state and federal governments. So trying to, all the regulations around, big road transport and those sorts of things. So the first step in that process was to engage with the key stakeholders. So members, non-members, regulatory authorities, government, about the prospect of forming that national body. Would it be supported? How should it be structured? What were the perceived barriers? What were the perceived benefits? And to be able to get that data impartially they commissioned us to undertake individual in-depth interviews with key stakeholders, followed by an online quantitative survey of all members and key stakeholders as well. And the result really was the outcomes of that research formed the basis of and the structure for the new entity, which is called Heavy Vehicle Industry Australia now. So a year later, we undertook another quantitative survey just to test whether the entity was running the way it should, and that its vision and its mission was being delivered and seen by its members, and overwhelmingly positive endorsement for the change to a national model, and reports that their advocacy efforts had helped streamline regulations and things like that. So look, it took a long time for that transition. So often we talk about transformation and we think it's a big leap straight to here and it happens really quickly. It doesn't. It happens over time. But I think that, guided by that kind of reliable data and those insights that we were able to gather, the outcomes were really positive. And HVIA continues to grow across all states and territories. And those are just a couple of examples. Does that kind of answer the question? I'm aware I've talked more transaction than transformation, but good data and reliable insights don't come about overnight. You need to think about them. You need to, get the right information. You need to sit on it. You need to know where that story is. So it doesn't always happen as a big bang, which we'd like to think it does, but it really doesn't. So I hope that kind of gives you a couple of examples.
They're great examples. Thanks, Brenda. And I think, going from state-based body to a national association, it's not something that people do lightly. And what I hear is the value of having someone around the table to help you think about the questions that you need to ask. A lot of people think that they can do research internally as well to help inform these big decisions, but being able to come to you and your business and being able to say, can you just sit around the table and help us? What do we need to be thinking about is certainly a very valuable starting point for a lot of these big decisions. That's great.